We diverge now, reader, because I want to know. Do you understand what it means to be trapped? Probably. Or at least you think so. Society morphs the meaning into something abstract. We find ourselves entangled with undesirable circumstances and powerless to break free. There are those entrapped by poverty and others by disease. Some find themselves imprisoned by expectations and obligations, starving the side, ravenous for the dangerous thrill. We weaken that fraction of free will until it is silenced. You are trapped by people and things, but mostly you are trapped by yourself and your own doing. Your ideas captivate and subdue you. But that being said, is there a difference between being captivated and being captive? It's a matter of consciousness, isn't it? When is it, during this process of discovery, that you realize you are trapped? Is it the moment the cage closes, the handcuffs tighten, the door locks? Or is it more discreet? The moment you realize you have no choice but to deny an action with which you wish to follow through. Rain thrashed the window. The privacy glass hid individual drops, but the fog the humidity emitted grew around the edges of the chilled metal frame. I sat at the very base of the window and stared up. I wondered what the wind felt like. The vehicle carrying the droplets to a liberation I envied. Inches away only, but might as well be housed at the end of some fairy tale. Within fiction, we find actual flagrancy. Those clean lines, clear-cut characters, and happy endings forming something perfect can only serve to remind us of the great disparity between an ideal and reality. We glare, wanting and helpless, at the mirror of a world we cannot possibly replicate. So I couldn't help but wonder, what was in store for my ending? 4 days and 3 nights had passed. Nights were hard as I felt a presence accompanying me after the sun's imminent and daily departure. I found a moment of strength immediately after my abandonment. I stood paralyzed by confusion. My heartbeat quickened. Pounding in my ears, it crescendoed over the clock with clear instructions. You need to run. You need to run. You need to run. Primal fight or flight activated, but I had no outlet. Still, I searched for one. Confronting what I already knew, I checked the only door. The metallic handle shuddered under my touch, granting an initial moment of hope. But that hope was instantly dashed. It gave a hard stop with more pressure. It was loose, but secure. Decisively locked. I shoved off it in frustration. Spinning around, I searched for... well, I don't know, actually. It's not like there was going to be some magical door or secret passageway I'd missed. The space was desolate. There was nowhere to hide anything or from anyone. Still, I swept the perimeter, looking for something because I couldn't just do nothing. I began to feel the fluster in my chest. I'm not talking about that mild embarrassment that might rouge your cheeks. No. I'm referring to that kind of panic that raises unflattering splotches from your neck down your torso. I resented the honesty this condition would promote. My face, my voice, my body language, I could manipulate and deceive outsiders into believing my confidence. But that damn reaction betrays me every time, spilling my secrets. I leaned against the window. Deep breaths, I reminded myself. Closing my eyes, there was only darkness. No longer did I have access to any memory I could steal off to for comfort. All I had was the here, the now, my stranger, and the dark. The cool glass and steady inhales succeeded in lowering my frantic heart rate. While against the window, I heard something Something new to the space, but familiar to me. A siren. It whined in the distance as someone much more fortunate than I was about to be rescued. And with that realization, I surrendered. The hours dragged. As I struggled under the covers, I pulled my knees close to my chest and faded in and out. The clock shuddered. My eyes eased into the morning light, and right away in my view line was another damn Pavlov's bakery bag. My stomach churned at the sight. But then I realized he had come back. And I shot up. He wasn't there. And that's how it was for 4 days. I waited for his return, but he never did. At least, not any time I could see him. I began to wonder if I was imagining him. I never let myself wander too far down that rabbit hole of doubt, though. Even in my own fog, I knew that was a dangerous grave to go excavating. Sometime later in the 4th day, though, he did return. Metal hinges screeched, announcing his entrance with shrill fanfare. I refused the spectacle and kept my eyes glazed and glued to the apparent downpour. His usual cadence of footfalls lessened as he crept behind me. Despite the caution, I was very aware of his proximity. The paper bag crinkled as he nudged the stale breakfast with his foot. "You were supposed to eat that," he chastised. "Wasn't hungry." I dismissed him. A muffled thunder rolled through the atmosphere. He sighed and stepped in front of me, breaking my eye line. My body remained stiff, but I allowed my eyes only to move up to him. My back molars scraped together. "It's time to try this again," he informed me, pulling the same folder from behind his back. Perhaps satisfied he had caught my attention, he sauntered around me. "What's your name?" he asked, mid-circle. I was well aware of what he wanted me to say, but the notion of saying it gutted me. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's as simple as my persistent tendency to go against the grain regardless of context, or maybe because somehow I knew it wasn't true. Whatever the reluctance, he waited. Another duel. So I made a choice. I pursed my severely chapped lips and inhaled. "Stockholm," I muttered with eyes closed. "Good. Yeah." He seemed unimpressed. He backed away from me and started firing off questions from behind my shoulder. With each question, I buried my face deeper into my arms. "Date of birth? Are you taking any medications regularly? Any chronic illnesses? Any family history of illness?" I couldn't answer anything. He pressed harder. "Hmm? Stockholm? Are you listening? You need to answer me. Stop!" I shouted back. I flung my head up and shot a glare at him. His shock was outwardly evident, silencing him for a few moments. He sucked his teeth and closed the folder before retrieving a fresh paper bag with routine breakfast. I flinched as he stood above me. He dropped the bag by my side. "You need to eat." Without another word, he left. No sooner than the second click did he begin shouting. This lured me, and, on light toes, I padded toward the hysterics. I held my breath to listen. "Mr. Sunderson, you need to control yourself. This isn't working. She's practically catatonic. We're still in the early acclimation period. We'll adjust. And in the meantime, What do you mean? I realized the sound wasn't coming through the vent as I originally assumed, but seeping through a damaged seal at the bottom of the door. I lightly pulled at the material, which gave way. I crouched lower. She's not eating. She'll eat if she gets hungry enough. You don't know her. Then what do you suggest we do? Someone shuffled their feet just on the other side of the door. I think I have an idea, my stranger finally revealed. I sprung away from the door, worried he was returning. But he didn't. I waited a good while, ensuring he nor anyone else would enter before kneeling back down to scrutinize the compromised seal. But then I heard footsteps, a familiar footfall cadence like the chorus taking permanent residence in your ear. I shoved the seal back in place and rushed to my original position at the base of the window. Stockholm? He called as he re-entered. I ignored his presence. You okay? He continued with a reserved approach while I continued the silent treatment. He kept a wide radius, as humans do when approaching something injured yet feral. Loose and anonymous tokens rattled in the cardboard box he shook. The sound baited me. I turned towards the peace offering. He held some kind of quiet negotiation in his hands, mandating my attention for any kind of response, the contents of which did not initially tempt me. Nevertheless, he stooped and emptied the box of 2,000 jigsaw pieces, the end result being the equally mysterious and complex Milky Way. Additionally, a commercial cup housing a liquid that presented like the aftermath of something unbearably nauseating. He pushed the cup closer to me. Without a word, he scoured the pile, hunting for connections. He fumbled with the pieces in an almost exaggerated fashion. Of course, I thought this to be a ploy. But then I watched his face. Concentration creased the corner of his eyes as he lasered in on the task. He was genuine and struggling. He held onto a single piece, attempting to pair it. I didn't understand how he couldn't see it. Almost as if he was colorblind and all the pieces blended together. But to me, the pieces would glow. Pairs would light up like a siren from 2 blocks down, and I could anticipate what needed to be done. I took care not to underestimate him. I wouldn't bank on a presumed poor intelligence. He wasn't dull. He was distracted. And like with the nearing siren and the glowing puzzle, I knew what to do. Okay, I thought. Let's play. I scooted closer and made a few connections. I separated the connections from the rest of the pieces, and he held his singleton in the air, still searching. I spotted its pair and waited. He combed through the pieces with his dominant hand. When he retreated, I pulled the complement and handed it to him. Wow, you're good at this. That's yours. He pointed to the greenish smoothie. I grimaced. It tastes better than it looks, he promised. I took a small, appeasing sip. Returning to the puzzle, I spoke. I don't know. I don't think so. What? Family history? I don't think there's anything like that in my family. You sure? Well, I would remember something like that if it existed, right? Yeah, I guess so. Chronic illnesses? You said you couldn't eat gluten. Yeah, I don't know. And so began the parade of personal nescience. Puzzle pieces clicked, questions went unanswered, and my ignorance was well documented in that folder. Is there a family history of mental health disorders or substance use? I don't know. Do you use alcohol, nicotine, or recreational drugs? I don't know. Have you ever purposefully hurt yourself? I don't know. Have you ever had thoughts of wanting to die or made plans to do so? I don't know. How much control do you feel you have over your day-to-day life or the relationships you keep? I don't know. Stockholm. What? This isn't a memory question. It's about right now. Oh, ask it again? How much control do you feel you have over your day-to-day life or the relationships you keep? None? I scoffed at the obvious. Do you feel disconnected from yourself or numb when thinking about your current circumstances? Yes. Stockholm? Stockholm? Yeah? Last one. Pay attention. Okay. How do you feel about me? The question rattled me. I looked up from the puzzle, thinking he surely was looking for a specific answer. Whatever he wanted, it wasn't written in the space held between question and impending response. And for some unknown reason, I told the truth. I don't know. He nodded. Okay, good, yeah, good. I think that's enough for today. He shut the folder. I noted the label on the tab, Stockholm 1. It's funny, the way people present when they feel like they aren't allowed to be hurt. Their sullen faces hide behind obligatory and toothless grins, as if the particular curl of the lip could distract from the pleading in their desperate eyes. They beg, I need you to fix this. But the request stays sealed behind the pressed lips, and the rest of us look the other way, comfortable in our justified naivete, no matter how false. But the thing is, in that moment, if I knew how to fix it, I would have for him. You would have too, if you saw what I saw. He stood up. I'm gonna leave all the... He gestured towards the various consumables he had brought in case you get hungry. I nodded. I sighed, eyeing the partially complete puzzle. Though it was less than a quarter done, the picture was clear. I could fill in the gaps with my mind. This clarity inspired me to scheme. He was gone for the night, but he would return in the glaring morning light, not long after the clock would shutter. That much I had extrapolated. The sun set too quickly. The light that would trickle in did not offer adequate aid in sight. I felt my way through the darkness mainly and stumbled to the door. I ran my fingers across the bottom seal until the damaged material snagged. I massaged it loose. This created maybe an inch of space between the door and the floor. So I peered through. The long passage was even darker than the room, but there was a small beacon of blue light at the end. I pulled at the remaining seal, but the material was secure. I wasn't breaking out. Not by force, anyway. But I did have an idea. My hands patted the floor in search of the chocolate milk he had left. Once found, I brought it to the bathroom. I flicked on the light. The fluorescent light blinded, and I squinted while my eyes adjusted. A sinkhole opened in my chest as I opened the dozen or so empty drawers installed below the counter. Fortune came in the final drawer, stuffed with washcloths and spare towels. I threw a few rags on the counter and unscrewed the milk, dumping it down the sink. I rinsed and drained it a few times before shaking out the excess droplets. Satisfied with its cleanliness, I grabbed it by the neck. I turned my face away. I drew back, then propelled with every bit of force I had the bottle into the counter. The very spot that had maimed me. But nothing happened. What the fuck? The bottle was still perfectly preserved, so I brought it out of the bathroom and hurled it at the wall. In the dark, I heard a dull thud, and while I couldn't see, I knew that the bottle hadn't shattered. I had to crawl on my hands and knees to retrieve it. The plan had stalled. I traced the bottle's clean, intact perimeter, contemplating my options. Strength alone was not an effective strategy. I ran an inventory on what was readily available. The clock didn't seem relevant. The mattress, again, not helpful. But the bedding, that sparked something. I stripped the pillowcase, put the bottle inside, and swung, hitting the ground. But nothing. Again. Nothing. Third time. Still nothing. So at this point, I'm beyond infuriated. I slammed it in a final futile attempt. My anger had hijacked my rational mind and commanded a self-sabotaging play. With a jumping start, all my weight landed in a heel strike against the bottle. And it shattered. Loose shards tore through the pillowcase and sliced my foot. An acceptable price, I decided, only post-commitment. My senses grew sharper with every passing hour, which allowed for clear thought, but also came at a price. No more forgiving numbness. The fresh cuts in my feet, the fading wounds on my face, the muscle aches, the great bodily protests, complaining. I was fully aware of it all, and seemingly all at once. With 2 fingers, I plucked the shard, careful to avoid the threatening edge. Once under the fluorescence of the bathroom, I wrapped a washcloth around the bottom few inches, fashioning a haphazard handle for my blade. Grabbing another washcloth, I ripped the blade through the fabric, and with this initial damage, I was able to tear a thin strip, which I secured around the handle, shoring up the grip. From there, I slashed the remainder of the rag. I brought the tatters to the adjacent door. The compromised seal disintegrated as I removed the section, and I peeked through once again. Nothing but the distant blue glow and darkness. I shoved the eviscerated cloth in the space. It was packed tight, and satisfied with the setup, I snagged my knife and withdrew. The darkness hid the clock. I had no concept of time, but I was sure I wouldn't get any sleep. So I sat cross-legged on the mattress and cradled the knife in my lap. The sun was high when the clock woke me from a sleep I didn't know even happened. Morning was here, and it was time. I double-checked the cloth and the seal. Convinced it was secure, there were no more excuses, no more obligations. A completed to-do list ushered me to the unnatural. I ran the blade through one of the bands of bright light. The sun raced through the uneven edges and refracted through the room quite violently. Brilliantly, really. Beautifully, even. I took the tip of this complicated instrument and dug it into the center of my left palm. The merciful dulled sense was long gone. I felt everything. The initial laceration, the rushing of blood, the agony, the anger, the pure disbelief, and with a deep enough incision, I ripped the blade down, gashing open my palm. I watched the immediate gush. It needed to be deep enough to cause an urgent concern. Blood instantly filled my hand, dripping over either side. I flipped my palm and watched the trails dribble. There was a moment, I remember, thinking how remarkable all this was. marveling at what must be endured to achieve. And I had done it. But it was when I did this I noticed something. Something far more curious than the scarlet flood. A discoloration wrapped around my fourth finger. I held it up to the light. Unmistakably, a thin band of lighter flesh. I didn't have time to contemplate the sinister implications, but I knew it would be an upcoming haunt, so I pushed the thought aside. Returning my attention to the gash, it was severe enough. The morning sun bathed the room with hope, the exact antithesis of the self-inflicted wound I caressed as a valuable token. I remember sweating and shaking, and how odd that was to be shivering through an active perspiration. A distinct copper seeped from my teeth as my senses witnessed the blood spill. The metallic taste intensified as I took a deep breath in and let out a despairing shriek of anguish. Right on cue, rushed footfalls approached from the other side of the door, and I backed further into the studio. Stockholm? He burst through the door. What the hell's going on? I stood, shaking, but not answering. The apparent injury grabbed his attention. What the hell happened? He asked, jerking my hand into his grip. I seethed. The bottle broke. I gulped and gestured to the shards on the ground. His eyes followed the pile up to the damaged drywall I had demolished in my second attempt. On the wall? He questioned with an arched brow. I shrugged. He turned his attention back to my palm. Gee, Stockholm, this is really deep. Come here. He led me to the bathroom and threw on the faucet. I plunged the wound under the water and sovereignty while he grabbed one of the washcloths. Gradually, the water outweighed the blood as the hemoglobin cocktail swirled the drain. Hold this on it. He offered the rag, and I complied. He sighed. Shit, we're gonna need some gauze or something. Bingo. He left the bathroom. The first and only time his movements were rushed. Frantic, really, and careless. His eyes darted around, not so much searching for something, but avoiding mine. He placed his hand on the door handle. I'll be back soon. Another promise. I nodded, but he didn't see. In one smooth motion, he yanked the door open and was on the other side of it. He didn't notice the drag from the wedged cloth. He would have been halfway down the hall before the door would close, and when it did, my adrenaline pumped, half preparing for my next move, but also half from self-satisfaction. This disrupted beat marked a new anthem for me, and I was the composer. It was time. I finessed the door ajar. With eyes alone, I peered down that dark hallway dressed in a manufactured glow. I tugged the door just enough, granting access to the beacon. One foot breached the threshold. Then the reluctant other followed. The door shut behind me. A small blue light flickered on a sensor planted next to the door. I spun around, jostled the handle, and pulled. The door wouldn't budge. I've wondered, more often than I cared to, if I could have re-entered that room. Would I have? I know it doesn't make any sense, but I can't say for sure that I wouldn't have. No part of me wanted to continue those circumstances, but now I was in even deeper darkness. Why had I been so sure of my emancipation just beyond this locked door? I had no idea what kind of labyrinth might be beyond this hallway. But I couldn't turn back. So my only option was to go forward. It was now or never. The moaning floorboards protested with every progressive movement. I disregarded their foreboding and held my throbbing hand closer to my chest. The light's granting diameter grew as I drew closer to the hallway's end. Within the graces of the blue glow, I bore witness to not only its source, but all its strange companions. A combination TV VHS player nestled on a folding card table amongst countless documents in poorly stored folders. Each folder was labeled, "The Private Sector of Psychological Studies." Several pallets of carefully stored syringes and vials of clear fluid stood at attention on floating shelves. Prescription pill bottles, missing labels, lay among the files, some empty, some full. One was left open to an old-fashioned pestle and mortar. I picked up the pill bottle. Vibrant orange gleamed in contrast to the manufactured blue. In messy penmanship, I discerned what was scribbled across the bottle in permanent ink. Stockholm 1. I scrunched my nose, bringing the bottle closer. I took a few sniffs. The contents were odorless. I returned the bottle to its original place, and that's when a few drops of blood dribbled onto the table. "Shit!" I whispered through clenched teeth, and began wiping with the rag. As I smeared away evidence of my wounded presence, titles from various documents started jumping out at me. I rested my injured hand on the respective shoulder while my dominant hand flipped through a series of handwritten notes titled Stockholm 1, all with the description of compliant, obedient, subservient, uninquiring. I scoffed. Sifting through the pages, one particularly bursting folder shared the matching title. Opening the folder, I came upon a rather blank document. Mary Melody Sunderson, Maiden Davis. Hidden just behind that paper, I found a photo with a plastic bag stapled to the back. And my lungs collapsed as I studied myself in a white gown. I grasped the ring through the plastic and looked to the man sharing the photo's subject. My stranger. My husband. He held me close in that photo, with his rusted and neatly coiffed hair matching that ember-laced gaze. So I thumbed through the rest of my file, beads of sweat racing down my temples. Amongst the remaining chaos on the table, I spotted a VHS tape labeled Stockholm 1. Setting my file aside, I shoved the partially rewound tape into the player. A raspy static screen sounded off before the picture grew into focus. I recognized my husband, sitting in a folding chair. The room seemed empty, though his stare was fixated on an entity off-screen. There are certain ethical obstacles this study faces, a calculated voice explained just out of sight. The private sector of psychological studies helps alleviate those burdens, the voice reasoned. You know, cut out the bureaucratic nonsense and dig to the heart of the study's purpose. My stranger nodded, though his skepticism reigned in his expression. Look, Mr. Sunderson, a new voice chimed in. This study could really help people, and you and your wife will make a nice bit of money. The voice trailed off. He gave an exasperated sigh with that same huffiness I thought I held responsibility for. And no one else will touch her? She won't interact with anyone else. She won't remember this? Not a thing. The neon scorched my eyes, but I leaned in closer anyway. An involuntary welling of my eyes spilled over, partially to protect from the aggressive blue emission, but the pit growing in my stomach instilled that. even without context or recollection. Devastation guts you. I watched my husband's contemplations, heart pounding in betrayal. And even knowing the aftermath, I still hoped it wouldn't end as it did. But he finally glanced up in decision. Where do I sign?
I'm so far